Live. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, evening, depending on time zones. Time zones kind of suck. Yeah. Let's see. I have Arsene and Murray. No, so we've got two different M's. Okay. Yeah, you're not duplicated. Yeah. 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 Especially, you try to connect on one machine. Maybe you tried to connect on your laptop. It didn't work. You go to your desktop or you go to your mobile device and then you log in. But then your frozen picture from the laptop still hanging there. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. No idea. No, I didn't do anything different this morning, and everything just worked. I opened up Jitsi, opened up OBS, and started streaming. And according to Pulse Audio volume control, all the inputs and outputs were set correctly last time. That's the strange part. Is everything was set correctly, but for whatever reason, YouTube could not hear you guys, so it was not streaming the desktop audio. I guess so. I guess it's a Pulse Audio problem. I don't know. Or, I don't know. Let's ask the YouTube chat. YouTube chat, can you hear everybody? I'm sure you can hear me, because my audio is... You monitoring? Let me... Okay. So, yeah, this might be a situation again where... Okay, hold up. So now I can't hear you guys. I'm playing with my audio settings as well. All right. Yeah, this was probably just a Jitsi problem then. I don't know why Jitsi is giving me these issues. Yeah, well, it records the desktop audio on my... Yeah, let me play something that... Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to play a little bit of one of my videos here and see if I can hear it on the stream. Okay. So I can hear the video playing. And could you guys? You didn't? I paused it now. Yeah. Well, I'll let it play. Okay. All right. Yeah, that could be an issue. I do separate out my audio from everybody else's as far as audio tracks. Let's put everybody on the same audio source.
Still, it shouldn't.
But yeah, but, I mean
it shouldn't, because OBS can mix multiple audio sources.
Yeah. And it's the way I record everything, so.
Yeah, obviously it should work.
When was the last time you recorded anything with audio?
2 videos ago. I mean, the podcast I do has music in it. Yeah, that's on a separate track. Or anytime I play a video or clip.
Now it works. Now it works.
Okay.
I can hear myself.
Now it seems to be okay.
All right. Well, we're gonna go with it.
I think I might know what it is. How you have how is it called? Just forgot the term to use. Let me check in OBS what the term is. Properties, not tracks. How you have tracks set up. That's my guess. That is the issue. Do you have all the audio on track 1?
Now I do. Yeah.
Or if you need to have all the audio on track 1.
Well, that's the case with a lot of audio and video playback.
Yeah.
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 You separate it out on different tracks to edit it, but like if you opened one of my unedited clips in VLC, you would only hear me and not the desktop audio, because by default most things only do track 1.
Only about track 1. So my guess is OBS only sends track 1 to YouTube, or if it sends more tracks, YouTube only cares about track 1.
Right. Well, I'm glad we got that worked out, because I couldn't figure that out, because all the settings and everything were definitely correct. And pulse audio volume control, all the input and output look good, and I could see the meters going, so I know it's picking up everything you guys are saying, everything I'm saying, but I guess OBS just wasn't sending that information to YouTube.
Can you hear me any better now? Because Peter in chat said that there is quite low.
Yeah, you sound a lot better.
Okay, you should have told me before.
Yeah, and is my sound okay?
Yes, it is.
It sounds okay to me. Now, I don't actually hear what the YouTube chat will hear from you guys, because I hear you guys through Jitsi. They're hearing you through YouTube, and it may be different.
Yeah,
I should do a roll call.
Stream. Yeah. I listen to streams, so it works. Right now they have a discussion about why we use Jitsi, because we should have our own media server with our own connections to do this.
Yeah,
that would be a fine one.
Yeah, that would be.
But for once a month, there is no point.
Exactly.
So, I just say putting another layer between the app and the computer.
If it would be still weekly, then maybe something like that would be a project that could be done. But
even then, unless you were living in Jitsi,
still, why would we have our own app and our own media server just for this monthly thing that a couple of us join up with you?
Well, I gotta say that this is working a lot better than the last time I was using it, although I was using 4 gigs of RAM then, and I'm using 8 now with a better processor. So.
Well, Jitsi keeps getting better. You know, it's still not perfect, but it does work for what we need it for.
I still don't like having to run it out of the browser, though. I'd rather have a native client.
There is an app for Jitsi, but
I use the
it
app
really,
image.
at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter
Yeah.
what it is. It's an app or is it a web app? It really doesn't matter. At the end of it all, it is just execution of code. And while Jitsi probably ain't at the level of some new stuff with WebAssembly, it probably uses JavaScript. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what it is. Just a browser is just the shell around it.
I was
It's
expecting.
one
Yeah,
of the
but I
shells.
hate putting another layer, or for the app to work,
Oh.
putting another layer between it and the operating system.
You don't like running those containerized package formats?
No, it just it. One of the reasons why I always liked Linux was because I could be with the operating system and have it working with me, not me following along with what some
Mhm.
Java app was supposed to be
Well-
thinking that I was. I much prefer a native client.
Well, reality is that if we ever want anything to be cross-platform nowadays, we need to think browser,
No,
because
and I-
Ooh.
even in future,
Are-
Well,
anything
I mean,
will be
even-
running server.
Even
We-
the help desk software that we use at work, ServiceNow, which is pretty much the industry standard. It okay, it makes programming it a lot easier, but it comes down to a SQL statement that probably would be better running through a desktop client versus a browser.
If everyone would just port their applications to Electron, then we could just have everything cross-platform.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I did.
do it my
I did
way.
some
That's the
profiling.
only way. Yeah.
I did some profiling on applications, web applications, style applications. The biggest problem with most web applications isn't JavaScript or PHP or any other language. Problem is the SQL. Problem is the accessing of data, because that takes a long time. Even DT's website uses JavaScript,
Mhm.
and it runs really nicely because JavaScript runs on your system. It doesn't run on server. It runs on your system, so it's depending on your system.
It depends on what that code is doing.
No, JavaScript in most cases, when it's doing stuff in DOM, which is in the browser window, it will be doing it on the client. Only way it will be doing on the server, it is server-side code, which means it is basically replacement of PHP, so it will be using a Node.js. But that's about it. So most cases when you use JavaScript, it will be used on the client machine, and that's a big thing because it is what JavaScript is made for in general, and normally it is for what's it called, for DOM management.
Well, years ago,
But-
when I used to play around with JavaScript and PHP and play around with the little web dev stuff, I'd go to web dev forums and they'd always talk about optimizing their code, optimizing their PHP and JavaScript, and you don't hear people talk about that anymore. I guess because nowadays machines are so fast, everybody just assumes that they can have sloppy, slow code executing.
While optimizations are a totally different beast. That
Yeah.
most actual people who do not program think that you can just optimize the code. Problem is, it is actually worth it to optimize the code, because you have, let's say, thousands of lines of code,
Mhm.
or millions even, and you have to find those errors in the code, and then find a better solution for them. But you need to know that you won't introduce any bugs, any side effects, and all that. So is it actually worth to optimize for, let's say, maybe few megs of improvement, or maybe a % of CPU usage improvement? Is that worth? In most cases on desktop systems, no.
Well, the
On-
anti-bloat crowd would say it's worth it.
No, in my opinion, it's not worth it. Only
always
place where
worth it.
that is worth is if you are on server or purpose-based machines. Even on servers, it's not anymore worth, because just the power we have, and everything is now run in cloud. So really don't really care about this stuff.
Yeah, well,
But
I just think it's people being lazy. It seems like there's a lot more
No,
lazy people these
no,
days.
no. If it would be, you see, a lot of people do not even understand how the people program. They don't just write one code and that's it. They write one code as a proof of concept. Then from that they write another set of code that's actually what goes in production. And that one code that it goes in production is a lot more optimized than the proof of concept one. But still, it's still not as optimized as it could be, because it's not worth than going over the code multiple times to find those little tiny bits that are unoptimized. Because simple reason is it is hell of a lot expensive, with time and manpower required to do it for little to no improvement.
I'm glad you went there with manpower, because that's where I was going to go with it too. Is if as long as you open source it, you have that thing on GitHub or GitLab, you know, other people can help you out with that problem.
Yes.
If it's a
Can help you out. That's the important thing. I hate when people open source, evangelize open source, say everything will be safer, everything will be better, because people will check your code, will look at it.
if it's worth checking
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
It can, because
The
we
thing
can.
that I find also is that you still got to kind of vet who you actually
Yeah.
listen to.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, you got a lot of coders out there, and then you have some programmers. You know,
Yeah.
and the coders are just going to, you know, they'll go over to Oracle, take the Java tutorial, and okay, I can use this class for this or that.
That's not where
You
they
know,
go. They go to Stack Exchange. They just copy
Yeah.
something from
Yeah,
right,
copy paste.
and they
I have
they
some
have
examples of
no
copy paste
clue
that are really funny.
oh, wait a minute, it would be better if we use this or write it this way, or, you
Yeah.
know, that type of thing.
There actually, like for the can look at the code, I have a great example. If anyone remembers the Heartbleed bug that was in OpenSSL implementation,
Mhm.
basically that is the code that supports the secure internet, and for years there was a bug in it, and nobody even found it because nobody looked at the code. That's the reality we need to be watching, because it isn't about the whole that it will be watched. It's about that it can be watched, and there are some things nobody will watch because A, they think that it's better or it is already working, and B,
Well,
because they are lazy and code is complex and they
that's
don't
probably the
want to
deal
watch.
with the Open SSL was, you know, as long as things are working, why is anybody
Yeah.
digging in the code or so?
Yeah, and it was probably a really complex code, so nobody really wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
Because they would quickly get lost. But reality is, it can be watched, but there isn't a sure thing that it will be watched.
Hmm.
That's the reality of the situation that most people don't tell. Is the dirty truth about open source.
Well, so I'll just let you guys know that right before the stream started, probably maybe about an hour before the stream started, I upgraded Fedora from 32 to 33.
That was going to be my next question, actually, was because of the big Ubuntu releases and the Fedora release. I was going to ask you guys if you hopped. I assumed that Big Pod would be on one of the new Ubuntus, and I kind of assumed Chris would be trying out Fedora. So
I'm already thinking of going to 2104 testing.
yeah, you might as well. You get on the development release and just roll along with it.
Well, I'll be doing a great favor to our QA team, because I'll be running Ubuntu Mate. So if any bugs, I can just report them.
Mm-hmm. I used to do that years ago as an Ubuntu user. I would always move on to the development release, you know, just to report bugs or whatever. And the one that was the last one I ever did that with, because it was such a bad experience, when they moved from GNOME 2 to Unity, and that was Ubuntu 11.04. I probably had to reinstall like 3 times during that development cycle. Nowadays, there's so few big changes. You don't have to worry about any major breakages. That was not the case, because now you're going from GNOME 2 to GNOME 3, and then you're throwing a new shell on top of things, and
It,
like
it makes the life a lot harder.
it broke hard a couple of times. And I was
Testing of that is hard.
yeah,
I also probably go to 2104 because it will make my life easier as a Ubuntu Mate developer.
have
So
you?
Big Pot, are you using ext4 or ZFS?
I'm using ext4.
ZFS is the big thud with Ubuntu. I don't think many people are using it at all. It's just
A lot of
people are not interested in file systems.
I'm not. I won't say a lot about it because I don't know how much I can say actually, but there are numbers of people using it.
And
Problem is,
people choose
at
the
least for
defaults,
me,
right?
yeah.
So
But problem is for me, I cannot use it because of how my system is set up. Because it will require a lot of reorganizing and resetting up things, so it's not worth for me. But if I was going only for Ubuntu on a machine, then ZFS would be the only option for me. Problem is I have on the same drive Windows and Linux as a dual boots. That's the big problem for me, and I cannot do that if I use ZFS.
That's right, yeah.
well, 99% of the people that are going to install Ubuntu, as far as desktop users, are going to have no idea what a file system is. They're not going to know what
Yeah.
Extend4 or ZFS is, so they're just going to go with the defaults anyway. So that's all that is.
That's why Fedora actually went with the
ButterFS.
default being .NFS, not XFS or ext4.
yeah, you don't get a choice
That's the
with
only
Fedora,
reason
right?
Why they went as a default.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would go for secondary. Again,
Yeah.
Well, they're defaulting to ButterFS. I mean,
Yeah, the
you
default.
still have it,
Yeah.
ext4 in there.
On Ubuntu,
I mean, you
default is
still have
ext4.
ext2 if you want it.
Yeah.
Garuda, I tried Garuda a month ago, the KDE.
Right.
That's a beautiful, beautiful system. And the ButterFS, what they've done is every time you do an update, it takes a snapshot before.
For
And the
time
last
shift.
and the last 5 snapshots show up in the grub menu.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong, you can just go to the grub and
Mhm.
restore it. That's perfect. That's what other distros should be doing
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, that was
On
an interesting
on
look at
Ubuntu,
Garuda
there
because
is on Ubuntu, there is for every install you do, for every apt install, every package management install, whatever, it takes a snapshot. And they have a management tool and everything.
On
as
my
far as I
system,
remember.
on my system, it takes 0.025 seconds to take a snapshot in ZFS,
Yeah.
and 3 seconds to do a rollback.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Garuda
I don't
did
know.
a lot of things right. I mean, I like the fact that they had ButterFS as the default, and that works with time shift, which they were using with their backup utility, and then
and fish.
and fish in the terminal. Like that was amazing. Like that just made my day. It's like, you know, I didn't check to see if Vim was installed by default because that's the one that always gets me on Ubuntu Mate Big Pod. Is Vim's. not there. I'm gonna open up a
again-
bug report. So-
Again, I have already told why is that, because we already have a better tool, Nano. And
Yeah.
on the other hand, V needs to be installed anyways. because
you
of
don't have to
dependency.
replace Nano with Vim. Vim just has to be there.
We just don't want to have multiple because it is not. Because
You mentioned micro text editor
Yeah.
before,
Mhm.
and I didn't know about that. And I tried to put it in an app image, and it works.
Yeah.
I couldn't get Vim, and I could get 99% of Nano in there. But there's 2 editors I could get inside an app image. One's micro, and then there's TextAdept, which is a Lua GUI text editor.
Well,
Those are the only editors I can get in there. So that was a good tip. For
Vim
me.
is such a big program. I mean, I don't know what all it touches on your system. And Nano being a GNU app, there's no telling what could be causing problems with you packaging that. But Micro's great. I love
Oh,
Micro.
Nano was the settings.
Yeah.
It had some settings in etc., and I couldn't override it,
Mm-hmm.
so it would work perfectly inside there. But it would always go out to etc. to get the settings, and
Oh.
that would foul things out. Other than that, it was okay.
Yeah, I was shocked
But-
by Garuda because people had asked me to take a look at that. And I'd never even heard of it when I went to go download it and take a look at it, you know, for that first look video. And I actually expected it to be just some respins of Arch, but you know, that Dragonized KDE edition actually looked pretty sharp. I was pretty impressed with the work they did on that. At least it was a little different. It wasn't just a distro with a new wallpaper and a new theme. You know, they put a little work into it.
Yeah, it has a reason for being. There's 6 devs, one in Australia, one in Canada,
Right.
one in Germany, and I can't remember the other one, and 2 in India. They're all over the world. Just a handful of guys have been doing it.
Yeah.
It must be pretty sharp.
Yeah, that was probably, you know, here in the last month since we did the last video chat. I did 2 or 3 distro reviews, but a couple of them that people seem to like was the NixOS video. A lot of people are checking that out now. And, of course, Garuda a few days ago. And I've actually still got NixOS running on one of my laptops, and it runs just fine. And it's interesting distribution. Another one that I think serves a nice purpose for people that need it. You know, it's not obviously for everybody, but if you're one of these people that need something that you can do these reproducible builds with, NixOS is pretty fantastic.
Well, as you see, I'm streaming from the ham shack instead of the front desk, which is where it normally was going. And I'm actually using Ubuntu on both of these, both the desktops in here, because I ran into a program that we're using on the radios called WinLink and RMS Express, which allows us to send email over the radio rather than having to rely on internet and stuff like that. But they don't have a native Linux client, so I had to use Wine.
Okay.
Believe it or not, Wine. But they had step-by-step instructions on what had to be done with Wine, and there was I think two things that were packaged for Ubuntu that I didn't know exactly what would be the equivalent for Fedora. So it's like, okay.
Just quickly in the chat, Leviticus is asking, is Pulse Audio working? It's a miracle. I agree. It's a miracle. And that's another video topic that I mentioned on a couple of different videos in the past month is, you know, my distaste for Pulse Audio and how I'm looking forward to Pipewire being default in Fedora 34. Have you heard about that, Chris?
No, I haven't.
They've opened up an issue as one of the devs for Fedora. He's like, it's time to go ahead and make Pipewire the default. So,
well, hey,
they're moving ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you look at, oh God, can't think of the video. Why am I blanking on the video replacing X?
I don't know. We're getting old, Chris.
I know.
I just had a birthday a couple of weeks ago. It's very sad. It's just keep getting older.
My birthday's coming up in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But oh well, whatever is replacing Xorg.
Wayland.
Wayland, thank you. Jeez, I don't know why I kept blanking out on that one.
System D, essentially.
Yeah,
No.
Wayland is starting to come into its own. I still don't know if it's ready for prime time, but
for me,
it's a lot better than
it is still not.
It's okay for most users. The problem is when you start having to record your desktop, when you start having to stream from your desktop, things like that. That's why you don't see. And I know there's, you know, tens of thousands of people out there probably using Wayland by default on Fedora and other distributions and wondering why they don't see any Linux YouTubers using Wayland and recording, and because it's not usable. If it was usable, you would see us showing you guys, hey, look how awesome Wayland is. It's just not. It's not ready for that kind of work yet.
While I remember, I just looked it up here. Proton Drive is now available in beta, sort of like Google Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Only it's from Proton, so it's going to be public domain. It'll beta now, early next year. It's supposed to go live. They've been using it in-house for over a month now, so I'm going to give it a try. I just realized right now that it's available.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention about the Wayland thing, Xorg and Wayland. Another reason a lot of people just can't move away from Xorg, and because Xorg has so many utilities available with it. I mean, there's so many of those X11 applications. Some people are using those things in scripts and everything, and Wayland, for some of them, doesn't have an equivalent to do some of those jobs. So that's another thing that Mr. GFY in the chat says Xorg is so easy to use, though. Yeah, I mean, it works.
Well, Xorg is going into maintenance mode, so...
But it's not like the situation with Pulse Audio, where everybody's like, well, Pulse Audio really could be better. Let's try something different. Xorg, at least, nobody says, man, I really hate Xorg.
Well, I'm going to say like this. We need to commend Pulse Audio and its creator, because it did wonders for Linux audio. Even though it is a pain in the ass, it still did wonders for audio on Linux.
Yeah.
And those who say it didn't, they don't use Linux.
I salute you, Lenart Pottering. Thank you for everything you did. Okay. All right.
now let's stop being crazy people and start talking like normal. Let's talk about systemd homd.
Yeah, that's another one. You know what? I don't mind that one. People keep getting mad. Systemd is getting bigger and more bloated. I can understand where he's going with that, actually.
Yeah. I understand, even though I think some of his ideas are somewhat wishful thinking that it would be that way, because it cannot be that way. But his idea of renovating the home directories, that's actually a good thing. We need to start, in a way, moving away from Unix-based.
Well, Lenart too,
because that is holding Linux back right now.
Lenart is a Mac guy too. He's a Mac guy. He knows about MacOS. Matter of fact, when people got mad at him because he created Pulse Audio and systemd, he started working on Mac software for a little while, and and a lot of his ideas with Pulse and systemd, they're very Mac-like. Like he's trying to kind of lead us in that direction, because I guess macOS gets a lot of things right. And of course, the Linux fanboys get mad, when
for that.
Yeah. Because the audio server on Mac does work.
Yeah. Setting is audio server on Windows works better than Pulse Audio. That's a setting.
Oh, that hurts me to admit that too, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's more mature as well. I mean, you see the lineage all the way back from Windows 3.1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still,
with
Creative
Labs
is way better than anything Linux could offer, but for normal users. When you go into complex stuff, yes, it is weaker than Jack, but it offers enough ability to be plugged into the Windows audio subsystem that it can, if you know what you're doing, rival Jack.
Yeah, Jack's powerful. It's not perfect either. Mainly just because of the complexity of having to, do all the connections, all the syncs and everything. And if you've ever used Jack, I'll start the Jack server sometimes. I have Jack installed on my system, and I'll use it. I've made videos recording with Jack. Just to check out the differences between Jack and Pulse. I often alternate audio servers actually on my system. There's not much difference other than it's a little more confusing, the upfront cost with Jack as far as setting all your connections. And then when Jack is running, I can't actually listen to YouTube videos. That's no longer a possibility. The mics and everything will work, but I can't go and listen to a YouTube video and record that while recording. So, and that's a common issue with Jack is you start the Jack server, you no longer get YouTube playback.
I thought Firefox required Pulse Audio. It no longer works with ALSA.
Well, that might be a Firefox issue then, because that was probably Firefox I tried that in. So it requires Pulse Audio?
Well, it no longer worked with ALSA, so I don't know if it works with Jack, but I think
that's probably it.
I think it requires Pulse Audio.
Yeah. So I would probably have to do Jack plus Pulse Audio, you know.
Yeah, the combination.
Yep.
I got a short article here about a guy. I'll just read it. It's a short paragraph. The work Ubuntu Studio team has done here is just incredible. Jack and all the system tweaks, GUI tools, real-time permissions, low latency kernel, even governor tweaks. All that is presented extremely well, easy to install, and even available to all Ubuntu flavors. It makes using Jack audio so easy. It was literally faster and easier for me to configure my Jack than Pulse Audio, and with better results, no latency, etc. So Ubuntu Studio may have done a good job with Jack.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they have. I've checked out Ubuntu Studio in the past, and it's a great distribution for those of us that need Jack or want to use Jack. Another good one that I had pretty good success with was there's a Fedora-based distribution that's designed for audio and video work. And I had installed that on one of my extra drives a couple of years ago and made some videos with it. Is it AV Linux? Does that sound familiar to anybody? I'd have to distro watch it. But I installed it and ran it for 2-3 weeks on my main production machine. You recorded a few videos, of course, in that time. And
on what it was based?
I think it was a Fedora-based multimedia distribution. I can't
No,
remember
that
the
would be
name.
Fedora Jam. That would be Fedora Jam.
Fedora
KD
Jam.
based.
Fedora Jam was it. Yep. There's a community spin of Fedora called Fedora Jam.
Yeah,
That's
Fedora
it.
Jam.
Yep.
Nowadays, that is managed by Ubuntu Studio team.
Yep.
But I don't know for how long. That's all I'm gonna say. Because then I don't know how much I can say, how much I can't.
Yeah. Well, I think we beat up Lennart Pottering over Pulse Audio enough. Gotta cut the guy a little slack. He's doing good work though on System D, Home D. So.
Lennart Pottering did a nice job with System D.
I mean, he created Avahi too, so.
Yeah. All of the stuff he did made a difference, and to think that.
Well, that's why he gets so much hate, is because the guy actually has made one of the biggest contributions as far as to the Linux ecosystem with all that software. I mean,
if I think about it, every system administrator who does Linux, who understands what Linux does, is basically will say no other neat system than this one, because they need to actually do stuff properly, because otherwise you get just shut down, no graceful shutdown of services, and maybe graceful shutdown if you code it correctly yourself, not because system did that automatically, a graceful shutdown, and then it just becomes a hell of a lot of issues. System D made for system administrators work hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, I could see that, especially some of the people that do job interviews sometimes don't know much themselves. You know, you come in for this Linux-y job and they want to know, hey, what do you know about Linux? You know any programming? Big Pod, do you know Python? Can you program in System D? And then you just look at them and say, yes, I know System D.
Yeah, I can. Basically, that's what's going to happen.
Let's see. I got somebody in the chat here, Fabian. I can get Arch Linux and Gentoo to run on an Android TV box.
Maybe.
Wow. Wow, I don't know.
Yes and no. Yeah. Depending on how open the bootloader is and all that. Basically,
Yeah.
just like an Android phone, because that is basically an Android phone in a box with a different version of Android. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you could
I
get
ha-
any GNU/Linux distribution to run, I mean, all of them would be about the same.
Yeah.
So Arch, Gentoo, whatever. But I don't know about the Android TV box. I don't know anything about that.
I have one of the Android TV boxes. Basically,
Yeah.
it's a phone with a nice
With a-
case with a remote control
Yeah.
and a bit different version of Android on, nothing
Hmm.
more. Because it even has an access point inside the mobile access point, and basically it's just a phone.
Looking back at some of what I've done the past month. Oh, the top 5 Linux distributions of 2020. People kept making that video, so people wanted to know what my top 5 of 2020 was. And so many people do top 5 distributions as far as for the new user, for the general population. And I was like, no, I'm just going to do the top 5 that I took a look at in 2020 and I liked. And, some of them were not shocking. Obviously, Arco was my favorite Linux distribution of the year. But I had some other ones that I thought were really good. A couple of them Debian-based. And I don't know what you guys think about Linux Lite, but I've installed it on a lot of family members' computers over the years. It's one that I've had a soft spot for many years. And Antics. And the reason I like Antics is it just works on some really crappy hardware that I have some old crusty machines that nothing else will work on. Antics will actually install on. What about you guys? I mean, we're getting close to the end of the year. What distributions, especially distributions that maybe you went into and you didn't think you would like? Have you tried anything that you were kind of pleasantly surprised at? Like recently, I was surprised at Garuda. I went into that thinking I'd probably hate it. And I was like, you know what, this is not bad. So,
I didn't really check almost anything out, but
you didn't hop this year?
no, I did hop at the start of the year, but I hopped from Arch to Ubuntu.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the only thing I did.
Yeah,
No, guys,
I
I
had this-
kind of. Go on.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
I will. So I kind of hopped lately because thanks to you, DT, I tried Arco Linux and I regret with my whole board. And it was actually a nice experience because it was on a new laptop.
Hey, can you turn your volume up a little bit? You're a little low.
What about now?
Yep, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, so I tried Arco on Huawei MateBook 14, which is last month's release, and it works very well. But Arco Linux was a total disaster on that laptop. I don't know if the hardware was had any difference here, but I was happy that I will be using a distro. Actually, it was not for me, but for somebody I know. And I was happy that we will have a out-of-the-box working KDE with an installer and also full disk encryption with blocks. And none of those worked out of the box. So I had Arco Linux, but with manual intervention, so like Arch with extra steps.
Yeah, especially
That's my experience.
yeah,
so
depending
far.
on which version of Arco you
Yeah.
install. Some of them, like the Arco Linux D installer, it's a command line installer where you install a bunch of scripts and you can edit these scripts before you actually run them. And it's not like an easy Arch install. That's actually more tedious than actually doing the standard Arch install. So depending on which version of Arco you get.
I think I was using Arco D, but that was just a GUI with that fun installer.
Yeah, if you don't want to change anything, you can just go through
Arco
the...
D basically drops you in. You install it normally with a normal installer,
With
graphical
GUI.
installer. Then it drops you
Yeah.
into a command line, and you can then basically you get at the same state as if you would after installing base Arch. And that's the point of the distro. Then you can install those scripts that Eric provided, or you can install everything yourself. Then you also have ArcoB, which is the pre-built ISOs with desktop environments and all the Eric's changes and all that. Or you could build your own ISO with his scripts he has on GitHub with all the changes you want in it, and you can have basically it creates an ISO that is perfectly tailored for you because you made it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid that. I wanted a Arch-based distro that is working out of the box and isn't Manjaro.
You would probably need to install Arco Linux B for that.
I'm not sure which one I used, but it had a GUI installer. It has it was live CD with a graphical installer.
All of them have a graphical installer.
Okay, I didn't use any command line until it installed and
it rebooted
crashed.
you into a command line.
Yeah, it did. It should not, I think, because I installed a display manager, SDDM,
No,
if I recall
It
correctly.
doesn't matter. If it's Arco Linux D, it will drop you into a
Why? I
command line.
installed SDDM and I thought it would be just enabled with systemd.
No. Catch is that this Arco Linux D. Arco Linux D is made for basically it's a what you get after Arch Linux install.
Right.
And even if you did install, even if you enable SSDDM, whatever it's called, that crappy KDE display manager, you wouldn't have anything to open. You would just be stuck on the login window because you wouldn't have a display environment, window manager.
I installed KDE too with the installer.
Then also the catch that just installing doesn't mean it to be enabled because installer then enables it afterwards.
What you got to think about Arco Linux D is it's kind of like a standard Arch install. Just installing KDE doesn't mean you reboot the machine and KDE is going to launch. You know, you would have to go in there and put it in your exinit RC or however it is you want to launch your particular desktop environment or window.
Enable DM.
Right.
Catch is that Arco Linux D is made to be basically customized however you want from scratch.
Yeah, you have to jump through some more steps because it's really more of an educational tool. Like if you wanted something quick, that's why they have the Arco Linux B editions, where that you just install, reboot, and you're good.
I see.
They don't do a good job of explaining that on their website, though.
They do a good job explaining. Catches you need to do a bit of reading because
I didn't read the F manual because I thought I'm too smart for that.
Eric wants to be teaching experience because he's a teacher in his life, so he wants Arco Linux to be a teaching experience more than actually environment you can use, but more of a teaching experience. That's why he has everything from how to install Arch Linux by hand tutorials on his site to how to install just basic install to most complicated install already made.
I think Arco Linux, one of the problem is you find everything on their homepage, but it's sometimes a little bit hard to find where it is on the homepage.
Well, they have so much information on their site because Eric's made so many videos. He's made like 3,000 videos. And I think he's got links to all of that on the site. And then he's got articles they've written. And then you've got 26 ISOs, I think. It's a crazy amount of stuff on one site. And to try to organize that in a sensible way, what they've got now is not working. That's like the one negative I can say about Arco Linux is it would be great if they had someone that was like a web guy and would just reorganize that site for them. Because I know, like Eric's got a lot on his plate. He's probably just interested in writing code. and probably a lot of the people, the devs for Arco, they're just interested in writing code. They're not interested in maintaining that website or, the user experience of the website. They're mainly about the user experience of the Linux distribution they're creating. And I think that kind of shows. I think another distribution that for many, many years people complained about because their site was kind of inadequate, Linux Mint. Always had kind of
Their site is inadequate.
Yeah. And for such a large distribution, you would think, hey, just ask the community. Just open up to the community. Hey, any of you guys want to help us out with this website?
Their blogs are really crappy.
Yeah.
If you want to read anything, you have to fight through tons and tons of craft, like thanking the people who gave money, which is all great, but it is like basically
they need to
walls and walls of that.
Yeah, it's not paginated, right? It says you, instead of having it all on one page, split it up into multiple pages.
And the funny thing is, you want to read one paragraph.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess the release notes. That's all you want to read.
No button where you could just jump to that section.
Yeah.
Or something, or even in many cases, everything is in same style. Even the what is the name of the part of the article, everything is the same style. So you have to be really reading everything to know where you are, what you're looking for, and it's really bad. And then you have something like Debian, which has an awful site as well.
No.
Always...
The greatest website ever was Slackware. I haven't been to it in a while, but there for a while, Slackware had a problem. I can't remember if it was a hosting problem or a domain problem, where they actually lost their site for a little while, and the main dev of Slackware says, well, it'll be all right. Nobody really goes to the site anyway. Like, what? It's like Slackware does things differently. Like, they're still in that 1993 mentality. Website, we don't need a website.
Debian is basically one of the most confusing Linux sites ever.
Yeah.
Just to get an ISO, you have to go through 5 different pages that say download.
It's because everybody wants that dang mini ISO, and you can't find it. That's the one where when I want, the smaller ISO for Debian. You're right. You have to really search for that thing. You can't find it. They hide all the ISOs. It's up the standard.
I wanted that. What is it called? The non-free ISO. I had to basically go through the entire website to find it.
They want everybody to install the standard
and then,
ISO.
Then it didn't even have the kernel I needed. I had to compile it myself. Because
Debian is a little bit difficult.
One kernel module that is basically enabled in all of the Linux for my network card wasn't enabled in Debian. So I had to build my own kernel just to have Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Well, Debian, because they only want you to install that default ISO and nothing else, probably for support reasons. It's one of those things like, I love Debian unstable. Why don't they have an ISO that's already ready to go with Debian SID? The mirrors are already set up. All you got to do is do a 10-minute install and you're ready to go. They don't really have anything like that. They make you go and change the mirrors, and they make you jump through some hoops to get to that thing because they don't really want you to run Debian unstable.
Yeah. And then running anything other than x86 is also a challenge with Debian, because finding files for that is also a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, you're a lot easier if you just debootstrap everything yourself.
All right.
Oh, it's a lot easier. Go ahead.
I'm running Debian 10 stable through Pxmox, and it's a snap to install. But you install to a root desktop, and then you use task cell to select your desktop, XFCE or KDE. I chose KDE, so there was no customization or detailed work involved in it. It was very, very, very smooth.
You're running Pxmox, but you have a desktop.
Yes.
Why?
I've been doing it for about 4 years now.
Why?
Because it's got ZFS as a root file system, and ZFS has bailed me out time after time after time.
Yes, but still it's Pxmox. Come on. How can you run that as a desktop.
It works beautifully. All
I
you-
know it's a great distribution, but it's a server distribution for servers that need virtualization and not
Yeah.
desktop usage.
It's a
Well,
perfect- it's a
Silverblue
perfect
is kind of the same way, but I don't
No.
know. There's certain people wanting to
Well,
push
that's
that across
different.
the.
Yeah, Pxmox, or more correctly, Pxmox VE, Pxmox Virtual Environment, is a server distribution for basically a replacement for VMware ESXi and stuff like that.
Now, I've had people
Or
contact me about.
XCP-ng.
I've had people contact me and ask me about CentOS. Hey, you don't do any content about running CentOS on the desktop, or it's like, no, don't do that, guys. Don't go and install.
Don't hurt yourself and run CentOS on desktop.
You're not gonna be happy with
remember-
that, right?
I remember at school we ran CentOS as a desktop
Ugh.
in one classroom. That was my first big experience with Linux, besides playing with Ubuntu in a VM. So I was like, this is weird, and that basically reinforced my idea that Linux isn't for desktop, because that ran GNOME 2 and it was default GNOME 2. It was completely atrocious.
Well, the CentOS ISOs are still so old; they're probably running GNOME too.
No, they run GNOME 3
Have they
now.
updated lately? Okay.
They upgraded like a year ago or something like that. Funny thing was, at the time I was already, I basically did almost nothing with Linux, but I was still the guy who knew more about Linux than the whole class put together, and I basically did nothing with Linux. It was a couple of years before I switched to Linux, so yeah, because I knew basic stuff like how to use a terminal. That was the big thing, and that made me the Linux god.
The terminal.
And
You were the
then I
hacker
started
because you knew how to run
And-
HTOP or do an
And
LS.
then I started using Linux, and then the last 2 years I was basically the only guy who knew how to use a computer when he had to use Linux.
If you would have
Because
showed them
people didn't know
C-Matrix,
how to install stuff. That was a fun one when they don't know how to use keyboard. Or
Yeah.
one of the funny things was when a guy tried to use his mouse to click OK in a command prompt.
all right, I'm going to
Because
throw.
it was one of those, what it called, basically a UI in command line. He tried to click
dialogue.
dialogue. He wanted to click OK with his mouse, and that was
I
a
think
fun
that
one.
sometimes works actually.
Sometimes works on some
On some
stuff,
in
but
curses stuff, it might.
Yeah. And he asked me how this doesn't work. Press enter. It works how? You're trying to use the mouse. That doesn't work.
Press
It
enter,
ain't-
it works.
It ain't magic. You're in a terminal, use keyboard. You're in a GUI, use keyboard and mouse. It ain't magic.
Well, I wanted to change topics here. I wanted to throw you guys just a softball and let you guys hit it out of the park. What do you think about the latest version of macOS spying on its users? What do you think about that particular story, like that breaking news? Because when I heard it, I was like, why is this even a story? Because it's macOS, right? It's like
Problem is people are so thinking that actually Apple is for privacy, because one of the big things they do, they talk about privacy all the time.
They talk about Windows not being private, and if you want privacy,
not just that.
Well, that's kind of what people, the fanboys, that's the way they talk.
Look at Apple's keynotes on, let's say, on their Safari browser, on their basically everything. For example, when they first announced that they're going to ARM on desktop, I watched that keynote because I wanted to see how why they're going all that. And there was a big part on Safari, and basically all of that was filled with what are they doing to protect your privacy. Same with when they do anything on iOS. A big part of it is what are they doing to protect your privacy. There is a big part of it is what are you doing to protect your privacy? But reality is that's just a gimmick.
Why do you say that?
Because it's Apple. Apple was always collecting data.
Yeah.
It was known. It's just that they were trying to create an image that most people believed. I never trusted Apple. Like I don't trust Google. Like I don't trust anyone really.
It's a religion.
What was
Yeah.
that?
Apple is a religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a religion. In many ways, people believe Apple because they're Apple. Because they have that cult status. The funny thing is that when that news came out, I was like, okay, yeah, and now what? Nothing will change.
Yeah.
Because for most people, they won't even care.
Yeah.
Because
I thought it was
like,
a
they don't
complete.
care about Google, they don't care about Microsoft.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Like to me, it was a non-story, and people were
Yeah.
getting upset about it. I was like, "What? Are you surprised?" I was like, "This
But
is
the
not."
irony is, I still think that Apple, Google, Microsoft are still better than some other companies, like that one company that has social media things, because
Oh.
Microsoft, Google, and Apple, they won't sell your data.
No, that's a low bar. We're better than Facebook. Well, okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because reality, they won't sell your data. They will use it themselves. Why? Because they can create a
Yeah.
service. They use their data.
But it's different.
Microsoft, for example, Google is it for AdSense. For ads.
Apple is in the business of selling software, though. Facebook is in the business of collecting data. They're completely different business models.
Yeah, apparently Apple is going into ad business as well now. That's why they're collecting data, apparently, because they want to do ads, their own ads. Yeah, they want to be next Google when it comes to ads, basically.
Well, it
I
would make
think the
sense.
only things we cannot say about Apple is in one thing is really good. It's marketing.
Mm.
So
Yeah, marketing. And
nobody
that's what
beat Apple
you
in
need
terms of
data.
marketing.
You need data to make marketing work. That's also one other thing that.
Yeah.
And just like Google won't sell your data because that's their hand over every other ad company. It's the data they have about you. Same with Microsoft. Their data they collect on Windows users is their bonus for their AI models, for stuff like that they then sell you on Azure. That's why Microsoft won't sell the data, and Apple won't sell the data because that will make their marketing for their iPhones, their macOS devices, their tablet OS devices a lot easier because they know about their customers. That's the point. Facebook is partially does ads, but also what it does is it sells data. Because we know Cambridge Analytica, we know what happens because it's just a lot of data. And they don't know what to do with it, so they sell it. And that's why I trust Apple, and I'm really sad to say Apple, and sad to say Google, and Microsoft, that I trust them more than Facebook.
Just briefly, in the YouTube chat, somebody was asking, what do I think about tiling window managers on a laptop? Does it make sense for you? Yeah, I mean, I install tiling window managers on my desktop with my 3 24-inch screens, or these 13.5-inch screen laptops that you see behind me. It works. I mean, there's screen size doesn't matter too much because most of the time when you open a window to work in, you're just running it full screen anyway. You're running it full screen on one workspace. Not like you have a million things open most of the time. It's very rare that I have more than 2 windows open at a time on one workspace, because you always move something else to another workspace to get it out of the way to make room for something else.
I think it's even more important on laptops if you have only the touchpad.
Yeah.
And
Everybody, please be silent a bit, because I have something to do. Chris, wake up!
No, he's out.
No, he ain't waking up.
Well, I feel Chris on that.
Somebody in chat said, "Wake up, Chris."
Yeah. I'm going back to bed right after this too.
I need some more coffee.
I had my first cup. I may make me a
What
second.
time
here in
is
a minute.
it? What time is it in where you are, DT?
It is 11 a.m. here.
Yeah, I'm an hour ahead of them, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Here is 6 p.m.
6 p.m. for me too.
Yeah, Europe, the Central Europe. The whole continent has one time zone.
Where are you, Big Brother?
Slovenia.
Slovenia. Okay, I'm in Switzerland.
Oh,
All right.
I'm in Nanaimo, Canada, British Columbia. So we're from all over the place.
You're in
Yeah.
British Columbia in Canada?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Vancouver Island, Nanaimo, yeah.
And so what would be your time there? You're a couple hours.
We're 10:10. Oh, so 9:07.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know. I've been doing a lot of work with Python the last while. I've sort of done a derrick and trimmed down everything. I used to have 100 IT videos with Linux YouTube channels, and I've cut them down to 4. And I've pared everything down, so I'm not doing much other than Python these days.
Yeah.
So I managed to upgrade. I had Python 3.8 installed, and I upgraded it to 3.9. And you install Python through go to their website, download their 3.8.5, and then you expand it and do the configure, make install, and by convention you put it opt as Python. And that's how you get a Python that's independent of the one that's with your installation, and that works pretty well on it. And I also copied it over so I could copy it into PyCharm, and I did that, and I created a PyCharm project that has Python pulled into it, an app image source code and files put into it, and a main.py that has an initialization code into it. So I can run I could run things like, and create an app image out of it without having to do a lot of extra work. I took Dupliseek for a second time, pulled it into PyCharm, and put it in the main PY. I think his main dp.py is his entry point. Put that in, and then I ran it, and it gave me diagnostics because I didn't have pyqt 5 installed, the pip install. So I do the pip install, run it again, and it doesn't have CV2 utils until. So I keep going through until I've got all his pip installs in there. And I didn't have to know ahead of time what his pip installs were. I found them by trial and error on the way through. So once I got it working, I wrote another script that right clicks on it and it says compile to app image. It takes 40 seconds to compile his code into an app image. The source is 735 megabytes. It compiles down to 209 megabytes on it.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other thing,
Welcome to Dupliseek.
yeah, and then you can run it, and it takes 2 seconds to load from the GUI. And then during that 2 seconds, what it's doing is it's expanding that 209 megabytes back up to 735 in /temp, and then it runs it from the source code in /temp. And as long as Dupliseek's running, that temp folder will exist. You close Dupliseek, and the temp goes away. So I can take just about anybody's code, and if it'll run in PyCharm and that, I can create an app image just by right-clicking and say compile to app image, which is probably the best thing I've done in years on it. So
Murray,
pretty good.
maybe you could supply me that app image so I can put it on Dupliseek.
Sure, if you want, I'll be glad to.
Sure,
That's-
I can. That would be great.
Yeah, okay. Let's figure out how to do that. It's 3.8.5, I got it, but I upgraded it to 3.9 and problems. SciPy didn't work. It apparently they're wheels, and they're compiled. So SciPy is compiled into a binary something.
What
called
didn't work? What? Which one?
SciPy.
What?
So it took a month before they upgraded SciPy on it. I had to wait.
What is SciPy?
Yeah, that's one of them that's in yours. And CV2 utils is another one, and that still doesn't have a wheel. So I can't run your code in 3.9 yet And I don't know if they're ever
Uh,
going to make a wheel out of CV2 utils on it. So I'm just sitting
Can
there waiting.
you which pieces of dependencies? Because I'm a bit out of the loop with what I need. So
What's your question?
which dependency didn't work? Because we just
3.8.5 works, 3.9 does not work because SciPy now works, but CVU utils doesn't work yet. So there's still, what they were saying is 3.9 gets upgraded, but there's a lot of these external packages that are lag behind it, and they're saying you should probably wait to upgrade 3.9 to mid-December.
Can you type in chat which packages are not working so I can see why?
The only one I know.
Just type in chat.
CV2 utils is the only one in 3.9.
I don't know why would that even be there, because
Something to do with image files, OpenCV or something.
OpenCV, yeah, that is a computer vision library.
Okay.
That is one of the ways we compare images through computer vision. So even if, let's say, a cropped image, we can find a duplicate.
Yeah.
It's using a computer vision, so basically one of the versions of AI. That's what it is. So OpenCV Python, that's the package.
Well, if you package all the dependencies in the app image, then
No, you don't. This is Python. It's Python code.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Can you guys hear me?
yeah, you're good.
I just got disconnected from internet.
Everything looks good on this end.
Yeah.
Am I okay still?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So how am I going to get the app image to you there, Big Pod?
I
Google Drive.
I can probably put it up on GitHub, and then I don't know how I'll get you the link. Give you the link next month or something, maybe.
you could just you could make it you could fork and just put it into or I could just quickly make a repository
Yeah.
in which you can fork and put it in, and I will just accept the merge request.
Yeah, just do a merge later and put it in.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to do it.
So what do I do at my end?
You can just find duplicate on GitLab
Okay.
and just fork it and upload the file, and I will just pull it down. The main thing is that I know that it's there. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I know how to fork it.
I think they make it super easy on GitLab.
Basically,
Isn't there a
it's a
fork
button. Basically. Yeah, it's a fork button.
Yeah, they have a big button somewhere that says fork, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to look at it. I'm not logged in.
You know what I always want to do when I see a big red button is push it.
Yeah.
So do many other open source people. They love to click that fork button.
So the other thing I did with Python was IPython. I wanted to see if I could make it not only a Python terminal, but a bash terminal and get rid of my bash shell. And I can, but it isn't easy. It's a ton of work, and it took me 3 days just to muck around with the configuration file. So it's a niche thing. It's not for just about anybody. You'd have to want to use Python and prepare to do it, but you can run bash as if it natively inside of IPython. I can run all my bash scripts. I can run exa, I can run cat and cut and
What about PowerShell?
PowerShell, I haven't tried PowerShell in it. That's not going to dovetail nicely into it. But the other thing is you can say x equals ls-l, You can take the output of a bash command and store it in a Python variable, and then use Python to process the variable and the set. And you can do x equals 100, and echo, instead of echo $x, you can say x echo space curly bracket x, right curly bracket, where x is a Python variable, and the echo will, the curly braces will convert it into a form that the echo command can, or bash commands can use.
I think you
So
should just rewrite all the GNU core utils in Python. Just replace, all the standard.
That would be a great thing.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just have your own Python implementations of CD and LS and all of that.
Well, they do. IPython has a CD built in. They have a lot of that already, and then PWD, CD.
I mean, that's what the Emacs guys did with the E shell. Is they just rewrote all the core utils in eLisp, so that.
Yeah, but this isn't a true shell. It's a terminal shell.
Right.
You wouldn't use it for login shell or Control Alt F1 or anything like that. It's just straight for terminal use. But it's for most people, you want to use fish. You don't want to do this unless you're into Python and you want to do a hell of a lot of customization. It's really not worth it. I'm retired, so I could spend 3 days trying to figure it out. Most people don't want to do that. They got real lives to deal with on it.
Well, it's fun for you to do that, probably.
Yeah, it's challenging for me. Yeah.
Now, somebody else
Put
was...
it up on GitHub.
Yeah, go ahead.
Put it up on GitHub. That's interesting for me because Bash used to be the main language for me if I had to do any quick coding. But when I switched to Python, I couldn't switch all the way because Bash is still like a necessity on Linux, because there are so many command line utilities that are a pain to run in Python. I would have to run some sub-process library and run the processes.
Yeah, I still do that too as well. Yeah, you still do a lot of that.
So you only have the wrapper for example, echo, and not for every other program, because I'd rather have it work more like Bash by default, but have the features of Python, not the other way around.
Okay, yeah, but so you'd want to expand Bash.
Yeah, kind of. Because variables and arithmetics in or loops in Bash are painful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have floating point if you want it.
Right.
I have a hard drive that's compressed. My current ZFS compression ratio is 1.58. So my calculated space would be 500 times 1.58 would give me the actual number of space I can use. You couldn't do that in a Bash shell because Bash doesn't have floating point. In IPython, you just say 500 asterisk 1.58, and there you go. It's right in the terminal. And you can assign it to a variable, x equals whatever, and then start processing. So once you get it through that, it's really a nice thing to do. I can, what's the other thing? Oh, there's a few other things that you can do. I'm working on, I have database, which is going to come to me in a second. Redis.
Yeah.
I've got that running on a server on one machine, and I go to the Python shell on any other machine. I say rd0, Redis database 0.get, and then the key name, and it says if it was built into the shell right there on it. So you can do a lot of things you can't do with a regular shell. It's a shell plus, I guess. But anyway, that's just what I'm up to these days. I'll probably be doing that for several months more.
Well, it sounds like
if you can get it,
yeah, go ahead,
if
Chris.
you can get it to work with .NET, then then we can give Microsoft a run for their money.
Yeah.
Somebody in the
Deacon,
chat.
may I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
you are quite knowing Arco now. And what do you think about Arco? I was trying the SpectreVM Arco Linux B,
Mhm.
and I found their customization a little bit crazy, a little bit too much. What do you think?
For Spectre,
Yeah, or I think they have more or less all the same key binding and everything for all the
they try to.
the
Yeah.
Windows manager, but for my feeling, it's a little bit too much.
Too much as far as what there's is just overwhelming all the key
Now,
bindings.
all the optimization that they have done.
I haven't actually checked
sometimes-
out that particular edition of Arco. The one thing about Spectre WM though that it's a little limiting on the configuration options built into the window manager because it's configured in its own easy to read syntax, and it doesn't have a ton of configuration options, at least not nearly as many as a lot of the other window managers that I often talk about on the channel. But I haven't actually checked out Arco's version, so I'm not sure, what theirs looks like or what they're doing with it. I probably should though. That's one of the ones I've never actually checked it out as far as their customization of that, because it's kind of new. They haven't had that one around for very long. They just came out with the DWM edition recently. And yeah, the Spectre WM one, I don't think it's been around but just a few months.
Did you check the DWM?
I did. I did a video about it about a week or two ago.
I didn't saw it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just, briefly checked out their DWM desktop. It's pretty standard DWM. With a lot of the Arco utilities installed. If you run through the Arco Linux B installer, just install all your favorite programs, and it's a standard DWM desktop. They didn't patch it a whole lot, so it doesn't have a lot of customization to it.
Oh, okay, thanks.
But of course, you could always patch it yourself to make it whatever you want. And on that particular video, I think I told everybody to go install my build from the AUR if they wanted to see something a little more customized.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
indeed.
still on Debian, so.
Yeah. Matter of fact, yeah, I didn't, before I made that video, I didn't have my DWM blocks packaged up properly on GitLab or on the AUR. So I went ahead and packaged that up for everybody so they could get a nice panel in DWM. So you can find my builds of DWM blocks, ST, and D menu all on the AUR if you're on an Arch-based distro.
I'm still on Debian.
Yeah, Debian. You can build it. You can just go git clone all of that stuff too and just sudo make install. I mean, it builds in seconds, so and it's not very hard to compile it. And thank you for the super chat, Fabian in the chat. He didn't have a question with his super chat, but I appreciate it. You got anything you want to ask, Fabian? He just says, thanks, guys. Okay. All right. Did you have something, Big Bud?
Yeah, there is another video I want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yep.
The one about the hardware.
Which
Why?
one? Oh,
Why
okay.
do you
I know
need
the one.
all that hardware?
Yeah. Yeah.
That one was fun.
But do you ever see that when you're
Yeah.
on the internet? People will share their specs of their machine, and then somebody will come up almost confrontational. You don't need all of that. It's like,
Not just on web. I see that in real life.
Yeah.
People asking you why do you don't need such laptop,
Yeah.
such a powerful laptop.
Yeah.
And then there comes, and especially if you go in gaming world,
Mhm.
there is the ever perpetual question: why do you need such a strong laptop? Why don't you have a desktop?
Yeah.
And basically, such questions are a big thing
yeah,
because people think there's some stuff you should have, some stuff you shouldn't have.
I mean, we could all get by with a Celeron processor and 2 gigs of RAM, but for some things it would be nice to have.
No, I couldn't. No, I couldn't. Sorry, I couldn't.
You can always say that you're preparing for everyone to port their applications to Electron, right?
Yeah. Well, then we would need all that RAM. You're right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, reality is, I use that RAM quite a lot, and I still think that
Okay,
people
yeah.
should have more.
Yeah.
I sometimes think that why didn't buy 32 gigs instead of 16?
I mean, I had 32 gigs of RAM in this machine. I upgraded it to 64. Now, 32 gigs was more than enough for what I needed to do, but by upping it to 64 gigs, it allowed some of those programs that could use all that RAM to just use even more RAM. So, yes, you don't necessarily need it, but you could get things done a little quicker if your programs have access to, more resources. Because when I'm rendering in Kdenlive, I'm going to use 30 gigs of RAM in Kdenlive while I'm rendering. And of course, virtualization, you can give whatever you want to your VMs. So it's not like I never use those 64 gigs of RAM. I often use all of that RAM.
Now I'm moving most of the stuff on server anyway, so
yeah, you don't need all that RAM on your server.
then I just open a browser and I have access to everything through one program. That's how the future will look like.
Mm-hmm.
You won't need a computer with a lot of resources.
Yeah. Another one,
but it will need to be backed by a computer with the whole room of resources.
Yeah. Another question I was getting on that video, not from people, just being negative or whatever, people just genuinely asking, hey, you're talking about your machine. I saw you have 24 threads on that Threadripper. Why you need all those threads? And that's a legit question. Is video rendering, the more cores, the more threads you have, the faster it goes. So.
Not exactly.
Also,
not exactly.
Doesn't it depend a lot on your GPU too?
It does. Well, depending
on what you're using, what codec you're using, it all depends on what codec. But there is also law of diminishing returns. More you have doesn't always mean.
Also, I typically record
quicker.
When I record my videos. I typically do CPU encoding rather than GPU encoding. Well, that's nice, to have more.
Why would you prefer CPU encoding?
It just works. I've never had an issue with it. Like, it doesn't even push my Threadripper that hard. Like if I
CPU or software encoding, as it's correctly called, is actually a lot better for quality-wise.
Yeah.
If you're doing stuff like this, by stream, there is no difference.
Yeah.
But if you're doing any kind of higher quality content like you do for your videos, for that CPU encoding does a lot better job.
I'm going to fire up HTOP right now because I'm using CPU encoding to stream, which is very taxing on most CPUs. And I am using 19% of the CPU, so it's not pushing it that hard. And
how many threads or how many cores?
12 core, 24 thread.
Yeah. I was using Kdenlive the other day. And I was trying to import some clips. I think total of 21 clips, and the smallest one I think was about close to 100 megabytes, and most of them were half a gig.
Those aren't that big. Kdenlive has a lot of fun. Just importing videos, that's a lot of fun because it chokes like every time. I can't half of the time I need to basically pull it in, then go on a walk, and when I come in it's still frozen.
I might throw DaVinci on there. I don't know. I'm still running 8 gigs and I could put it up to 16, but I mean,
do you use proxy clips on a Kdenlive, Big Bud?
I was.
No.
Oh,
well, you should enable that. That would help with some of that.
I was watching your tutorials on Kdenlive, and when you mentioned proxy clips, I was like, hey, that looks like a cool idea.
And it does take a while for it to render those proxies when you first import all your videos. And Big Pod's kind of right. Go make yourself a cup of coffee. Make you a sandwich or whatever.
I'm used to using normal clips, but then again, I'm used to using what it's called. What's its name? Premiere Pro. So yeah.
The Adobe. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm used to that. So it's a totally different world. That thing is basically so much further ahead than Kdenlive. People don't even realize it.
What about DaVinci?
DaVinci is it's somewhere in the middle of it, but still lags behind Premiere Pro in video editing. Sad to say, but yeah, Premiere Pro is the reason why it is industry standard. Just
Yeah,
like
because
why
it's
Photoshop
paid.
is industry standard.
If we
Not
put
just because
all
it's
that,
paid.
if we put all that money into Kdenlive or GIMP, for
Yeah.
example, as an alternative to Photoshop, it would be 10 times better.
Yeah, also that, but reality is it is just better, and that's why it became an industry standard. I did it at my school for editing videos, and I gotta say, there is basically
Is it
so
an
much
industry
difference.
standard
But it's
because of
better.
that, or is it an industry standard because that's what schools have? Because Adobe
No.
said, "Oh, here, have this."
What I use is where I use the school was at a multimedia internet group where we do multimedia stuff. Like we even did a stream for TV of a marathon. So we do quite a lot, and we actually pay for every copy of Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe software you use. So because we chose it because it is the best, and
Well,
it is better because it is the best. It isn't just because people got to use it, because there is nothing better right now.
we just need a university system to make a stand and say, hey, you know what? You're using Linux with GIMP and Inkscape, and no,
It won't help
will
because
never happen. It might
because
one day.
chops requires certain software, and that certain software basically shows what's the best. And
I don't
GIMP,
know. There's
GIMP is so much behind Photoshop in usability and how good it is. I just can't believe people even use GIMP.
Oh, I love GIMP.
And I used GIMP way before Photoshop, and I was like,
I love GIMP.
I
what?
mean,
I can't use
Inkscape is
anything
good.
anymore.
You know, it's funny because I know people in the industry who like using Inkscape, GIMP, and Blender
Mhm.
a lot better than the Adobe products, but they said, yeah, it's just everything is taught with Adobe.
Well,
And
Blender is an industry standard, but that's really the only piece of open source software.
I was about to say a lot of people, a
such
lot of
that
professionals
is-
use Blender.
That is open source software is actually industry standard in that part of the industry, and that's everything else. It is based on proprietary software because it is genuinely a lot better than open source alternatives. That's why they are alternatives, really. And the whole system of it's all interconnected is a really nice thing. I gotta say, if you use Adobe software, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, they work together really nicely.
Yeah,
It's
proprietary
a seamless
garbage.
thing. It's a seamless work, so that's why it's
I was waiting
really
for
nice.
that one.
Uh-huh. I haven't thrown out a proprietary garbage in a few weeks. I had to throw one out there. Of course, I made the decision a while back. I said I wasn't going to use that term anymore because people said they were getting mad at it. So it's proprietary poo now. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I love that one too. I couldn't believe that you're actually going to stop using that term. I wasn't disappointed.
Matter of fact, somebody pointed it out on a video the other day. I was talking bad about a piece of proprietary software, and I said it's a piece of proprietary, and I paused for a minute, and then I said software, and they called it on in the comments. They're like, "You were about to say garbage." I was like, "Yes, I was." Yeah, who is the Adobe fanboy? His name is Big Pod. Deech in the chat is asking.
I'm not a fanboy. I just know what is better and what is worse.
I am not a Windows fanboy, but it is my bread and butter for my job.
You know-
so I mean, I know it and I hate it.
Well, if you get good using the Adobe suite, though, Big Pod, you can work at the Linux Foundation. Because they do everything on Macs with Adobe software.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he needs a Mac.
Is that why they hate Stallman?
Yeah, I hate Mac.
Yeah, I don't think Richard Stallman would like those guys, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay because certain friend of ours doesn't like Stallman, so.
Yeah. Well, it was funny when I made that video pointing out that they, made all of their documents using Adobe Illustrator. Then, so a few hours after that video, I guess probably people were contacting the Linux Foundation about it. So they changed the metadata on all those PDFs to where it no longer showed that they made it on a Mac using Adobe Illustrator. But then, like a couple of days later, I went back to the site. They put out some new PDFs. All of those were made on a Mac using Adobe Illustrator. So.
Let me explain something. A lot of people don't understand about this type of companies and all that. They're basically companies. So you give your employees what they're training and what they can use best. That's the reality, because you want output as fast as possible. Because that's what money is. It isn't. And funny thing is, I commented in that video. That's one of the most funny things I said, that the only group that mandates the company that represents them, or this company that mandates what system or what operating system, what software must they use, is Linux community. If you look at, for example, at Microsoft and their build conference, there is more Macs than Windows systems, and there is even Linux systems in there.
Yeah. Well,
on stage.
Should people that work at the Linux Foundation be using macOS?
Yes.
I mean, this isn't people in the Linux community. This is the people working at the Linux Foundation.
Yes.
They run macOS.
Yes. Like people at Microsoft use macOS and they use Linux.
But they make software that runs on macOS. That's different. Microsoft actually makes software for Mac.
Yeah, but still, it is about making the worker's job easier. That's the end of all thinking.
Yeah.
Making the work for that worker easier. If that worker is trained in Premiere Pro, if that worker is trained in Illustrator, then let him work in Illustrator. If he's trained to work that software on Mac, let him use Mac. And then there is another thing. A lot of people like the Jim Zemlin, how he used MacBooks on stage. What people don't know, especially if they didn't be in any of the such conferences, especially big conferences, they don't even know if a lot of those, for the stage laptops, they rent those laptops. And they basically, what's the easiest to rent? A MacBook. Sorry to say, but that's the truth. The easiest to rent is MacBook.
Well, I thought
they would rent.
I considered the same thing with the Jim Zemlin and the conferencing. You never know; it could be somebody else's MacBook. You're right about that. But he does. He actually owns MacBooks and iPhones. They're his own devices. I actually did check on that. And he actually has commented that he loves those devices. He likes Mac.
But you know who used the MacBook? Because someone said there's a big figure in Linux that used a MacBook.
Yeah, but Linus installs Fedora on his MacBook.
Linus Torvalds. He's not Linus, he's Linus.
Mm-hmm. Well, to the truth, I mean, if you want to be a purist about it, it should be running on a PDP 1173. I mean,
reality, if you want to be purist about it, use what the hell you want, because the only person who really can mandate what Linux should be run on is Linus Torvalds, and he really gives a crap about what it's ran. So
I mean,
yeah,
Jim
ran
Zemlin-
has fun.
Jim Zemlin a few years ago made the comment, somebody had asked him about his Macs or whatever, and he made the comment that he saw macOS as being a part of Linux because it's a Unix-like operating. It's like a sister to Linux. And I'm like, no, that's not really.
Technically, they have,
It is
technically, they have same. Technically, they have same heritage, but
No, they don't. I mean, well, it's,
technically speaking, they have the same heritage.
you have to
but
go back
reality is-
decades.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
They took Next operating system and made it
Yeah, and
Mac
Next was based
the,
on Darwin.
the original OS 9. Oh god, that was such a bad system.
Oh,
I mean, you read the history on that, and it's like it's amazing that it would even boot.
I want to say the quote with Jim Zemlin, I think I got it wrong. He mentioned that the Mac OS was a lot like Linux because you had access to the bash shell. So therefore it's Linux because bash is there. Or something like nobody would say. It's like, what? This guy runs the Linux Foundation?
Well,
It's a company,
yeah,
though. I mean, it's
they're a
Yeah.
foundation. They're a company.
yeah. I get that.
I would go down command line on a Mac all the time, and what they did, to get the GUI to work, and just they totally ignored any kind of security that the Unix would provide them and create their own stuff, which
Well, the funny thing is actually one time I actually ran what's it called? I ran MacBook for someone or fixed it. I had to run some software on it that person couldn't run themselves. So they put a MacBook in front of me. Hey, can you fix it? I was like, this is a MacBook. Yeah, but can you fix and make this work?
No, you're not a
Sure.
licensed Apple repair
Sure,
shop.
I can
Yeah.
make that work. Just wait so I can learn how to use this.
Right.
I started looking around. I was like, okay, I don't understand this. Oh, look, this looks like a terminal. I clicked on it, and the terminal opened. I was like, I am home now.
Oh.
I started typing things in it, and you should see that person's eyes because this became big. And when I finished, you could have done it in a GUI. Yes, I could, but I didn't know anything about that GUI. I know about this, and now it works. You can use GUI now.
Well, at least it wasn't a
And it
hardware
worked.
problem. At least it wasn't
It
a
was
hardware
real
problem because then
software.
you'd have to deal with all the soldering of all the parts and
It was a software. Some program needed to work, but it was actually a web server.
what I find interesting though is that disks on a Mac, the program disks, is GNOME disks, or it
Yeah.
looks exactly and works exactly like it. And
Does it use
so if
KVM?
you-
No,
Oh, how would it be
definitely
the-
not. Definitely not.
So
Because
it just looks like
KVM
it.
is
It's
a
not the same then.
No, well, I mean, you can the way you partition, the way you way it visually represents the drives on the
Oh,
system
okay.
and everything else.
So it's
like
not the same
that.
program. It just
It's
looks
not
like,
the same
okay.
program. It looks
No.
the same. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was weird. I didn't know. I was about to say you can't use KVM on a Mac, can you?
No.
Yeah.
No. But,
a lot of stuff can be quite similar because
control panels
open
look
source.
similar.
Mhm.
open source. You can just copy paste. Actually, now they switched away from Bash
Yeah, it's ZSH,
Mac.
but I mean,
Yeah.
you can get Bash still.
because the version of Bash in their software repository, in their store, is so freaking old. It's crazy because it still needs to be GPL2
Yeah.
to actually be.
They can't move to Bash is on
the newer
version
version,
5.0
yeah.
or whatever. They can't move to
Yeah.
it because it's GPL3.
because
They also can't use the fish.
GPL is one of the worst licenses possible.
They can't use the
I
fish shell
hate
either
it.
because it's GPL as well. So
I hate GPL.
I love it. If
I
it
hate
prevents
it.
that software from running on a Mac, I love it. No, just-
I hate it. That's actually GPL is one of the reasons why Microsoft at the time didn't like Linux, because everything was GPL at the time.
yeah. I mean, the Linux kernel is
And-
GPL, but it's GPL version 2 still.
2.
Yeah.
GPL 2 because Linux doesn't like GPL 3.
Big Pod,
Actually,
just for half a second. I'm at your GitLab page, duplicate. How do I fork it? I don't see how to fork it. I see a clone button, but I don't see any
you
fork.
need to be logged in.
Let me see. Yeah. If you're
and
logged
then
in, you
click
will
the
see a
button
fork.
Up in the corner, you have
Yeah,
the
top
right
right.
corner have the bell, star, and fork. You just click on the fork.
Bell star or the 4.
Yeah, just click on the fork,
Okay, the 4.
and it will fork it for you. It's all that itself, and then just clone it. Clone it.
Okay, I've got the 4 stars. Forum linker, Chris 1.
Your star. The third button is fork, and just click that, and it will. And then you get fork project. Next website is fork project. Just select your own namespace, and that's it. And you're forked.
No.
FORKED, right?
Yeah.
FORK. There
Yeah.
are 3 buttons. There's the bell button, there's star, and then it should
Your
be third
accent
button.
almost sounded a little bit more
You must sign in. To
YouTube
Star
friendly.
Project.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be signed in to fork anything, yeah.
Yeah. So how do I sign in on the top right?
Yeah, I have. You just sign in, sign up. That.
Yeah. Just create an account if you don't have a GitLab account.
Well, I've got one.
I got one. I keep forgetting the password to it.
Password managers. That's what
Yeah.
you know.
My password
That's-
manager is a text notepad on my phone.
That is
Okay, now I got
really,
it.
really, really insecure.
Now you got me.
No.
You should listen to what Troy Hunt has to say about this. That's the guy who made Have I Been Pwned.
My phone's encrypted and
Yeah.
and lock screen.
No. Just don't use text. Use a freaking password manager, please.
What's
Please,
wrong with
please.
the post-it note that I have on the monitor?
Don't
What's
use
wrong
that.
with that?
You should see.
It's
you
a
should see
file
how
on my
much-
phone that only I can get to.
Yeah. I mean, if you're the only one that has
So-
physical access
Still.
to it.
Project was successfully forked.
Okay.
Still. You should see what Troy Hunt has to say about this stuff, because he has so many talks about where he talks about how people get pawned by post-it notes, by files and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
well, no one's getting at that, and they wouldn't even know what it is. So
I mean,
Also-
if it's in your house, especially, I mean, I'd be so much more worried about the other stuff they would steal rather than my passwords for my computer.
Yeah.
You know.
Depending on what kind of passwords you have and for what.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
still,
my employer gives me a dash line for free.
nah.
Well, when
can
you
use that.
when you use Emacs as your window manager, I mean, they could take my computer. They're not getting into it. I mean, until they figure out Meta X. You know?
I've found that they have an EDT emulator for Emacs, which I find interesting because EDT was written originally
yeah.
in Emacs.
Let me
But-
search for that. EDT plugin Emacs. Let me see.
Yeah.
Yep, it has EDT emulation. You're right.
I could not get it to work the way I wanted it to work. I need the LK40 keyboard that I can plug into the PC. So
I mean, it would make sense because you already have the Vim emulation with things like Evil Mode. We probably have a lot of editor plugins that
yeah.
whatever you're used to, you know, you can use the same e-bindings and everything.
I mean, if I get a real bad jonesing for the EDT, I'll just fire up the VMS machine.
They even have Ed mode. If you like the Ed editor, you can do.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, Ed was better than the line editor on Microsoft, but
Big Pod, I've got file too big.
Ooh.
Don't got play with
Is there a
It's
size
200
limit on what you can upload?
Then
10
we need to figure out
megabytes.
something else.
10 megabytes on 209 megabytes.
Huh,
Ooh.
then let's figure out something until next time.
That's right.
Yeah, I think I can
Cloud storage.
file.
Yeah.
I just remembered why I don't like Nemo
Mhm.
so much, or not Nemo. The editor, the small editor,
Nano.
Nano. I'm having trouble with names today for some reason, but Vim will read in a something like a 20,000 file, 20,000 line file with no problem. And I try to do it in Nemo and it chokes.
Or
and
Nano,
says, that's
not
too
Nemo.
big. Or Nano.
But, yeah, depending on what you have running in Emacs can be slow on some large files. Not necessarily in
But
your
it'll
standard.
read them in, right?
Yeah. Org mode, especially, because org mode has a lot going on. If you have a very large org document, especially if you have a lot of source code blocks that it has to evaluate, it can crash. Ask me how I know.
Voice of experience there.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is Emacs is still single-threaded, unfortunately, so that impacts performance and crashing as well, because even if you're running Emacs as a daemon, you have multiple Emacs windows open. When one crashes, you lose them all.
Something I've been getting lately is I've been getting a screen tear on my terminal.
Which terminal?
Nemo. That proper name this time. Or not Nemo. No. Whatever the one with cinnamon is.
Gnome
terminal.
Probably just the standard GNOME terminal.
Gnome
terminal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just started the past few days. I don't know why. I don't know if they're
Strange.
that.
Strange.
Well, you would probably have to do something with the compositing in Cinnamon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably something with
Do you have any kind of
compositing.
compositor settings? I don't know much about Cinnamon, but can you
Just-
turn off some of the effects or?
Oh, I'm sure.
No.
I'm sure I could. I haven't gone
No.
through and tweaked anything.
I think you
so.
can't. That's
You can't. You
I'm
Maybe
sure.
other
I'm
companies
sure I
really
can.
will.
I haven't done anything with
Oh.
it. So
I don't know.
this just started like a day or two ago. So
And it just happens in your terminal?
yeah, when I do if I do a virtual terminal, like Control Alt F 2, 3, 4 stuff like that, not a problem. But if I bring up the terminal emulation off the desktop, it will. It starts doing that.
You might just try installing a different terminal. Try one that's not VTE based like GNOME terminal.
Yeah,
And see if maybe that's the problem. I don't know.
it could be.
Yeah.
I seem to be having problems working with the dual screen. Sometimes I start moving the mouse between the screens and the screen will disappear, then it'll reappear. It's like something isn't compositing right. So
What distribution do you have installed?
it's a Cinnamon Fedora. Well, it was Fedora 32. I haven't tried it with 33. I just put upgraded to 33.
So it's Cinnamon on Fedora. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it should just be a
Can
vanilla.
help with-
Yeah,
can-
it
can
should just be vanilla
help with
cinnamon. Yeah, I don't know. Well, guys, we've got just about 5 minutes here till the top of the hour, so let's give everybody a chance to give us a last word. Let everybody take a minute or so here. Marcin, you're still around? You want to give us a last word?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. I think that's all.
That's all? All right. That's short and to the point. Big Bud,
Yeah.
give us a last word, sir. And don't talk about Apple or Adobe.
Okay, then I'm gonna talk about Microsoft.
All right. You didn't get on that today.
VS Code is the best video editor.
Video editor.
Text editor you can find. No doubt about it.
I've never tried it. Maybe one day.
You should try it.
Yeah.
That would be fun with editing in VS Code. That would be fun.
All right. Jean-Michel.
Yeah, I have nothing special to say, so I just want to thank you all for the chat. It was, again, quite interesting. And maybe just talking to Mike, we were chatting with Mike. So this is the one that I was telling you about that I still use.
Yeah.
So wish you all a good time and see you next time.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. Chris, give us the last word, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having the chat. It was good getting back with you guys, and thank you for putting up with my little cat naps there. Hey, maybe we should get haiku back into limelight.
Yeah, I like
I
haiku.
have no idea.
Yeah.
No one writes anything for haiku, though. That's the problem.
Well, the problem is they don't have releases that often. I mean, as soon as they have another release, I'll definitely take a look at it because I had a good time with it on physical hardware even. It was not bad. All right, Murray, give us the last word, sir. Is Murray around? He may have dropped out on us. Lewis, give us the last word.
I'm still here.
Oh,
still
Murray.
here.
All right, Murray.
I'm back. Okay. A Linux sysadmin walks into a pharmacy, says, ephedrine. Pharmacist, I can't serve you that. Pseudoephedrine. There you go.
I already knew where he was going with that. Just pseudo everything, huh? Pseudo make me a sandwich. That's something that always works. All right. Thank you, Murray.
And for Big Pod, I've almost got it done. I put it on MediaFire, and I'm just going to put the link in the clone version. And if you get the fork version, you should be set in about 5 minutes.
He might be away from
Thanks.
his. Okay,
Thanks.
there he is.
Okay.
All right, Lewis, give us the last word, sir.
I just want to say thank you for everything you do. Thank you for your time to chat with us. Hope
These
to
are
see
always
much
fun.
more
Yeah.
videos from you in the future.
All right, thank you, Lewis. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
And Eric, give us the last word, sir. Is Eric there? He may be away. No, I don't see a mute symbol or anything. We'll come back to Eric if he comes back. Mike, give us the last word, sir.
DT, thank you very much for all you do for the community. John Michael, thank you for sharing your setup on your old ancient MacBook Air. Communicating right now on a MacBook Pro, which I've got my VirtualBox loaded with CentOS OS. So you've offended me many ways. So thank you guys.
The CentOS.
Hell, I work with Red Hat all day long as well as
well,
Mac.
that's understandable. Yeah.
I do everything I got to do to keep a job.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
All right, appreciate that. All right, Bonham, are you there, sir? Or ma'am? Or we have no video. May not be available. And if Eric is still away, well, I'll give my last word then. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me on camera. And we had some other folks that were here with us earlier that have already dropped out. So I do want to thank the patrons that could be with me here on camera. These chats are always fun. I look forward to these each month. I also need to thank all the patrons that couldn't join us on camera. Those of you watching the stream, I'm going to show some names on the screen. These are the supporters over on Patreon. I want to thank each and every one of these ladies and gentlemen as well. All right, guys. Well, wave bye to the YouTube